So we had to shuffle our speaking schedule a little bit this month. So I had the opportunity to connect with Timber, and I said, "Hey, Timber, I need a speaker this Sunday." And he said, "Oh, wow, really, Brian? I would love to do that." So anyway, so we're blessed to have Timber here today and next week. So without further ado, Timber, go ahead.
You're setting me up to tell the truth and the whole truth and nothing but the truth, right? So yes, I was scheduled to speak next week, and I received the email from Brian inviting me to speak today as well. And initially, I had a lot of anxiety just about doing this 2 weeks in a row, and I thought, yeah, but my job is to say yes. So I looked at the calendar and I realized, oh boy, it's not just Sunday, it's Mother's Day. I'm the last person in the world who ought to speak on Mother's Day. If you know anything about my story, this is not my week. This is not my day. This is not for me to do. And I sent him an email explaining exactly that, and saying, I will just trust that I will have something to say. I don't know if it's the right thing to say. I have historically spent Mother's Day celebrating Mother Nature and all the gifts that she offers us. And from the beginning of our session this morning, with everyone wishing everybody a happy Mother's Day, and the word mother being so synonymous with nurturing and caring and kind and unconditional and loving. And it's just, that's not my experience at all. And I'm not alone. Not all mothers are nurturing. To me, Mother's Day has always felt like Valentine's Day when you're single. There was just nothing to celebrate. And so I wanted it to be a celebratory day. And so I wanted to celebrate Nurturers Day, because not all mothers know how to nurture, but that doesn't mean we have not all been blessed by people and circumstances and elements and experiences that have nurtured who we are. In fact, the Buddha's mother died a week after giving birth to him. And so it was his aunt who stepped in and played the mother role. And to me, the word mother has always been a verb. It's something you do. And I think it came from the fact that I was raised by a mother who constantly told me, and if you read my memoir, you know this, I carried you in my womb for 9 months. I gave birth to you. Therefore, I am your mother. And I always felt like just in tears saying back, you carried me in your womb for 9 months. You gave birth to me. That's when your job as my mother began. That's not when it ended. And that concept was always lost in her. And I've spent many years, of course, doing a lot of research on mental health and trying to meet people where they are and understanding to a point where I truly have no resentment left for her at all. There's all forgiveness, but I do think it's important to bring to light the fact that mother and nurture are not synonymous at all. That is not to say that we don't need to celebrate the nurturers in our life. So my own parents also disowned me for a few years. We're cool now, but for which again did not feel very unconditional and loving and kind or patient or any of those things. And at the time, which was a very difficult time in my life, that's when this woman who was a single mother of 2 children decided to, quote unquote, I mean, I was an adult already, but adopt me, in that she became my mother figure. She became everything I needed, because at the time when I needed a mother the most, I didn't have one. And to today, still, when I say mom, when I talk about mom, or my mom came to visit me last month, my mom just retired, there's a very big distinction in my vocabulary and my speech when I say my mom. and when I say my mother. and and I think that's okay. I think it's important to acknowledge and recognize the verb mother and what that entails. I I've focused a lot on nurturing. I focused a lot on what nourishes us. And I often wonder, is the absence of that at home what drove me to search for what I consider is a very nurturing God? It's the relationship that has sustained me for so many years. It's the primary relationship in my life. And I would go as far as to say that even the subsequent friendships and romantic relationships I've explored have all been with the intention to strengthen that primary relationship with God. And if any relationship, any friendship deviates me off that path, that's the relationship I would abandon, not my relationship with God. That bond, that nurturing, that is more healing to me than what is conventionally considered to be a quote unquote mother's role or a mother's job, so to speak. Because just because someone, I'm trying to be very skillful in how I phrase a lot of this, and I may fail, which was why I didn't initially jump on the opportunity, as Brian suggested, to do this today, because I didn't know if I could, I didn't know if I could maintain that sense of skillful delivery and grace in the message that is important to put out there, that not everyone who applies for the job of mother is necessarily qualified. And not everyone who is nurturing is necessarily a mother. So I want it to be Happy Nurturers Day, to all the people who have nurtured us. And recently I read a quote someone posted online. It said, "My children did not choose to be here. They don't owe me anything. I chose to have them. I owe them everything." And I tried to reconcile that with a survey I took. I may have mentioned this to you before. I took it online a year ago, asking parents out there, when you had children, why did you have them? And if you're thinking about having children, why are you thinking about having them? And about 30% of the people said they had children because of social, cultural, or societal pressure, almost a sense of obligation, because that's what you do. And or even because their parents wanted grandchildren, they didn't want children, but they did it out of this sense of obligation and pressure. That was 30% of the people. Over 60% said they had a child so that someone will take care of them when they grow old. Some even went as far as to admit that that's why they had more than one child, in case one child doesn't take care of them. I think it says a lot more about the lack of our healthcare system in this country than it does about anything else. Be that as it may, only about 10% of people said, I wanted to be a mother. I wanted to be a father. I wanted children. And my best friend in Israel, she was a flight attendant for years, living her best life. And one day she's like, okay, I need to be a mother. I'm ready. And I'm not going to wait till there's a man in my life. I'm not going to wait till there's a father figure. I want to be a mother. And so she went the surrogacy route and had a child. And she loves every minute of being a mother, the ups, the downs, the all arounds. And those were the 10% who said, I want a child. I want to be a parent, whether they are of special needs or not, whether I can have them myself or adopt them. That nurturing instinct within some people is, I think, the best reason to then do this. To do it without that nurturing element, I think it was really funny. I was speaking with someone the other day and they told me, oh, you would have been such a great dad. And I'm like, no, I chose not to have children because I think I would have been a horrible dad. I was raised with so much rigidity and militant-like upbringing that I told myself I would never raise children. I would raise soldiers. And that's how and I don't want to ever repeat that. So I chose not to. But nurturing, I think it also goes back to why I don't see God as a militant God. I don't see God as a punishing, hateful, vengeful, God. It's as if we attributed the worst characters of humans to God. And it's a jealous God. And he's an angry God, and you can piss him off and he'll burn you in hell forever, or you can win his favor and live in paradise and in heaven forever. And that just did not resonate with me at all. I attempted suicide quite a few times in my teenage years, and I couldn't imagine that if God was anything like my parents, that I have to spend eternity with God. And so I needed a God that was different. I needed a God that was loving and kind and patient and understanding and unconditionally supportive. And I didn't find any depiction of that God, I don't think, anywhere other than Unity. And even though with Unity there is the overlap, if you would, or some of the influences, if you would, of the Judeo-Christian belief, and there's definitely reference to Christ and Jesus, it isn't, and if it is, don't tell me otherwise, it's not the way I understood it to be. It's the way I now see Jesus as my friend, Jesus as my brother, God as the one who will welcome me no matter what. And that's what I celebrate. That's nurturing to me. That's the primary relationship in my life. Now that I'm saying this out loud, as you know, I never think about these things too much in advance. I wonder, and I wish I could ask her, if perhaps that's the relationship that was missing from my mother's life. That she didn't have that caring, loving, nurturing God in her life. She didn't have that presence, that kindness, that grace to emulate. And so without, not necessarily a role model to whose favor you want to win, but more so to know that you don't need to win it, to know that it is already, you're already loved. You know what I mean? You don't have to do anything to prove yourself worthy. You already are. That is true freedom. And I think it was Thich Nhat Hanh or it could have been the Dalai Lama, who said, love someone in such a way that they feel free. And that's how I feel God loves us, is that we can feel free to be who we are without any worry or concern that God would somehow look the other way. I don't think she ever does. I think she sees all of it and she loves all of it. The way you and I and all of us are capable, I truly believe are capable of loving. And maybe that's what God is here to remind us of. To not compare ourselves to others who have failed to love, but to empower us to love in a way that is truly possible. I don't know if I'm even making any sense anymore. I just know that I'm, for lack of a better word, I'm sick of romanticizing this notion of motherhood as this all-encompassing, all-loving, all-caring, always present, because of the many who are overlooked, who have either lost their mother at birth, who didn't have a mother who was nurturing, or people who are all of those incredible elements but are not mothers. And I don't know if it's, actually, I know it's not just my personal story. There are many of us, because no story is unique to me. And I was afraid to share that today of all days. But it's what I've got. And I'm very open to, especially, you know, when he told me, okay, come on Sunday and speak, I thought, I really don't think I'm the right person for this Sunday, but you know what? I'll show up, and we're all back at the Victorian. I will be in the room, and I will look at everyone, and I will sense the energy in the room, and we will have a discussion about it, and we'll open it up. And then, and then when I found out we're meeting over Zoom, and I'm like, I have to do this at home, sweating buckets, mind you, because I'm extremely uncomfortable talking about this. I need to do this at home without even having you there to bounce these ideas off of, to have this turn into a discussion. So I apologize. And want to celebrate with anyone who did and was lucky enough to have wonderful mothers in their lives. Congratulations. You're, I think, a minority. And we need more honest depictions of what that's like. Not the romanticized version, not the photoshopped version, not the Hallmark version, but the godlike image of even Mother Earth is constantly providing despite the fact that we are so cruel to her, unfairly so. And I'm worried that we would deplete her resources of patience with us. Maybe that's what all these wins are about. I think every time we are uncomfortable, it is a call for us to love ourselves the way God loves us. Because there's still a part of me, embarrassed as I am to admit it, that thinks I need to prove something to myself for a sense of worth, for a sense of value. And it's just because there's that deep groove that's been embedded in me from when I was a child that I will never measure up. And that's when I turn to God and understand I don't need to prove anything to her. And it's that God's love that I want to celebrate today, even if it means I celebrate it alone. That's what I will be joyous about this afternoon. Again, if you have anything you want to add or comment or question, please take some of the sweat off of me and jump in. Brian, go ahead, please.
Okay, so yes, I will. Thank you, Timber. I really want to support you. So to be honest, I did kind of set that up with Timber when I gave the introduction there, because that's exactly what he described, how he responded when I asked him to speak. He said, you know, I don't think I'm really the person. And so I asked him just to to take it into his heart. And I said, I feel certain that, whatever you share will come from your heart.
Oh, it did.
And and that's absolutely true. And I know I am, and I know I hear from a lot of people that touches people. And so I just really am so grateful for you and what you contribute to our community, because it means so much. One of the things that I really took away from what you said was love someone so that they feel free. I love that. And that's a marker that I'll definitely, I hadn't kind of thought about it in those terms, but I really like that idea. And so I'll check in with my wife and see if she feels free.
And such, combining that with, poets and scientists and psychologists for years have been trying to describe what love even means. And I think it ties into love someone in such a way that they feel free. The Dalai Lama said love is the absence of judgment.
Mm,
And so that's what I think is, so they feel free. So they feel free from judgment. So they feel free from having to prove something and earn something. It's just that freedom to be who they are, not free to sleep around. Sorry, Brian.
yeah.
The freedom to be who we are, free from judgment. Because the
Yeah.
moment there's judgment, there's no longer unconditional love. It's already conditioned. And
Yeah.
I think if love has conditions, then it isn't love at all. So combining that, love someone in such a way that they feel free, and love is the absence of judgment. Both of those are true. And if
Yeah.
that is your case, that is your story, that is your experience with your mother, great. I'm happy for you. I just, it hasn't been my story, and I couldn't in right consciousness speak today and celebrate Mother's Day as if it doesn't resonate with me. I needed
Yeah.
to be authentic, and I'm grateful you I were to say allow me to do that, but if you guys have a different speaker next week, you'll know it's, it's because I've been officially uninvited.
No, that won't happen. Yeah, so I think the judgment piece is really important too, and it makes total sense to me that you can't. The freedom does depend on the lack of judgment, and I think that it makes it such important for us. And this is part of what I heard you say in your talk, is that it's about not judging yourself, or when you judge yourself, to go to God, and so you can make that connection and feel that you're okay just the way you are. And so that to me is what my constant spiritual transformation is to accept myself completely, and then I can do that to other people too.
Amen, Brian.
It's
Amen.
it's a project. Yeah. I'll tell you, we had dinner with some friends last night, and we were talking about spiritual growth and transformation, and the topic of mothers came up, and I just made the comment. I said my whole spiritual journey has been to come to terms with my mother, and I thank God for her, and it was a challenge. So there were parts of that were just really challenged the very core of who I am, and I think that's kind of what the mixed blessing of motherhood brings, is that joy, that absolute gift of being able to give birth, and that intimacy and closeness, so that we all feel a kind of special bond with our mothers. And if they and if we think that they haven't done it quite in a way that we are happy with, that they bear the burden of that responsibility of their children, who kind of come back and say, why didn't you do better?
Oh, and that's what, years of therapy have really helped me come to terms with forgiveness,
Yeah.
and understanding, and knowing that the problem wasn't that she wasn't the mother she needed to be. It was, I tried to get orange juice out of an apple.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I realized that, I was like, no, you're only going to get orange juice. And I was like, oh, okay. Not because she doesn't want to, because she can't. I can't.
Yeah.
It was my own doing, so to speak. And I know that Tink has something to share as well. I just, I appreciate all the kindness with which you are receiving this. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. You bet. Kate, go ahead if you have something to say.
I just wanted to praise Timber for the authenticity that came through. I think this is one of your best talks, honestly, because you're so authentic. That is what's so needed in this world right now, whatever the topic is, to be real, to speak from the soul and to share, because there's many of us who relate, and it's that dark secret that we keep behind us, right? I happen to be adopted, and I did meet my birth mother. And I praise the good Lord every day that I was adopted by someone who, you said the right word, my mama, who could not physically give birth, so wanted a child to love. And I'm going to cry because she's gone, but she was so loving. And I'm so blessed that I was taken from that horrible situation I would have been in. So, sorry.
Never apologize for that. Thank you.
I thank you for your authentic, heartfelt sharing. And I feel we're all honored to be here today on Zoom with you. Thanks.
Thank you, Tink.
Timber, I want to echo what Ethel shared. And I really want to acknowledge you for your open-heartedness and in your sharing and the authenticity with which you shared everything. This is Marcel, by the way, in case you're wondering who's speaking. But, and I so appreciate your presenting life as it is, as opposed to the idealized way we see motherhood. And, you know, without going into details, my mother was not present to me. And I may be one of the 10% that you're talking about, because she taught me what not to be as a mother. And so which is a hard way of learning. At the same time, that also really opened up my heart for like truly being and coming from compassion, and rather than attachment. And so thank you again.
Thank you, Marcel. Amanda.
Okay, Amanda, go ahead.
Thank you, Timber. Yeah, the majority of my spiritual and emotional work has been about making peace with my mother, who was not available to nurture me because she was grieving. For those of you who know me, you know I do a lot of grief work, and my grief started at birth because I was born to a mother who was grieving, and she was born to a mother who was grieving. So it came right down through me. And as you were speaking today, I realized that, you know, and as those who've done the grief work know that grief is a continuum and there's always stuff coming up. And I realized as you were speaking that there's a club, a Mother's Day club, that I don't belong to. Mother's Day of rushing out to buy a card for your mother and picking just the right card. And I did work very hard to heal that relationship, and it ended up being a good relationship. But I realized that there's a fraternity and sorority of members of this club who I just don't really belong to. I mean, I kind of do, but
it's very difficult to hear you, Amanda. You're having some microphone issues, but and I don't think it's just on my end, but right. But I am hearing what you're saying, that there's definitely like almost like a fraternity club of Mother's Day that we don't belong to. Yeah, there. Okay, we can hear you better now, I think. Go on.
Oh, I don't know what happened. Okay, well, thank you anyway.
Oh, great. Yeah, we can hear you great now. Yeah.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you.
Okay, and thank you, Timber, so much. Really appreciate you and what you bring to our community. God bless you.